The hypocrisy of the NBA. That is the topic of today's op-ed live. So LA Times came out with an article today. It says NBA cancels all media events with Lakers and Nets in China. So the article goes like this. The NBA has canceled organized media sessions for the rest of the Lakers and Nets trip to China to avoid forcing players to discuss the fallout from Rockets general manager Daryl Morey's tweet in support of pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Everybody knows what Daryl Morey did, right? He tweeted an image, fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong. That's what he tweeted, and he later deleted it because he got pressure from the NBA and probably other sponsors for the NBA and the sneaker business too. So that's where we are at right now, and a lot of press members has been asking questions to the NBA players. I think they're right now having preseason games in China, and they were asking questions about Daryl Morey's tweet and the blowback that it created, and then another blowback that it created because of the blowback. So they don't want to talk about this. The NBA, they canceled organized media sessions. They don't want to talk about the Hong Kong situation. Everybody knows what China is doing to Hong Kong is wrong in a humanity standpoint, but there's a lot of business involved. NBA especially has like the second largest market in China next to America, so they don't want to lose this money. I was watching one show this morning. It was by Fox Sports, Jason Whitlock. He said, I mean, first I agreed with his point. Yesterday he said that what the NBA, the players, and what the league is doing is pretty much wrong. You know, that they have been like the culture warriors. They are woke. That they should stand up to freedom of speech. But with China, they're bowing down to their money power. But today, he said that Daryl Morey should be fired for his tweet because of all the economic damage that he brought to the NBA and ESPN and all the other probably sports networks out there. I don't know. I don't agree with him on that. I don't think he should be fired for this. I don't think Daryl Morey knew that it would create such a huge backlash. And by the way, most Americans right now support Daryl Morey regarding this. NBA just wants to keep this revenue coming from China. So I'll continue. It said, we have decided not to hold media availability for our teams for the remainder of our trip in China, as a statement read. They have been placed into a complicated and unprecedented situation while abroad, and we believe it would be unfair to ask them to address these matters in real time. The move was not at the request of the players specifically, according to a source, but the league arrived at the decision through discussions with players and the National Basketball Players Association. Both the Lakers and Nets are free to speak to the press on their own, independent of the NBA, according to league official. The two teams played in Shanghai on Thursday before leaving for Shenzhen on Friday for a rematch on Saturday. In Shanghai, the Chinese government mandated that the league not hold press conferences before, during, or after the game. So you can see Steve Kerr here and Greg Popovich. Steve Kerr is the head coach of Golden State Warriors. He was a player back in the 90s. I bet you NBA fans would know who he is. He was a three-point shooter, playing alongside with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman back in late 90s. He had 3 championships with the Chicago Bulls, 96, 97, and 98, and he also added one more in San Antonio Spurs, playing for Greg Popovich. I interviewed Greg Popovich before when I used to cover the Lakers back in the day. Popovich is really a pain in the something when you try to interview him. I don't particularly like him. I don't like his stance against the president. He always badmouths him. He says so many nasty stuff. He said so many nasty stuff to the president, and also Steve Kerr as well. Steve Kerr has been very vicious, to say the least, against Trump. So I'm no fan of them, but they're in hot waters right now because they couldn't say anything about this issue. They were so open about trashing Trump. They so easily trash Trump and the American government, but they can't stand up for freedom of speech. They were bowing down to the almighty dollar in China. So this whole situation, I think there's a huge blowback that's happening right now in the NBA. If you check out like ESPN or Fox Sports YouTube channels, a lot of comments are against them, the NBA in general. We're talking about players like LeBron James. You know the players and the characters who has been bashing Trump on a daily basis, pretty much. I wouldn't say daily, but whenever they had a chance. I know that LeBron James has been trashing Trump a lot. Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, and also Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry, to just name a few. They wouldn't say anything about China, what China does, their heinous crimes against humanity, human rights, all kinds of human rights violations. It's just ridiculous. I think this is a teachable moment for all of us, whether we should bow down to China, apologize all around like what James Harden did about talking about standing up for China, for Hong Kong. Is that really that wrong to even apologize for it when all Hong Kong citizens want is freedom? Is that such a bad thing so that you have to apologize for the league? He apologized because Daryl Morey tweeted that, but he was thinking about the money that he's earning because he's earning like $35 million per year. So he doesn't want his salary to shrink. So I understand that. I do understand where they're coming from, but I don't think he should apologize for that. He should not have. And you have other, Steve Kerr, he couldn't say anything. Today, Steve Kerr came out with another interview. He was doing a press conference yesterday, and he was bashing Trump again. Steve Kerr on Trump's criticism. A day after being called out, this is coming from ESPN, a day after being called out by name by President Donald Trump in the wake of the NBA's ongoing situation in China, Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr described his own situation as surreal while pushing back against the president's comments. It was really surprising, Kerr said, prior to Thursday's preseason game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But mainly just because it was me. Then you stop and you think, this is just every day. This is just another day. I was a shiny object yesterday. There was another one today. There will be a new one tomorrow, and the circus will go on. It's just strange, but it happened. See the snipe he took against Trump? Then you stop and you think, this is just every day. What he's saying is that Trump is doing this every day. Yeah, he should do it every day. Why not? I don't even know whether Steve Kerr knows his politics or whether he's just shooting his mouth because his players don't like Trump. So Kerr drew Trump's in a Wednesday news conference after Kerr, a frequent critic of the president, initially declined to comment on the NBA's handling of the ongoing backlash surrounding Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey's tweet supporting anti-government protesters in Hong Kong. Kerr, who has been outspoken on many social issues he feels passionately about over the years, said he wanted to learn more about the situation before fully commenting. Do you know what he said? He said he probably have to check this whole situation out with his brother-in-law. I think his brother-in-law is probably a professor about China studies or something like that. It's ridiculous. Steve Kerr knows what's going on in China, the human rights violations. So it's okay for China to do that, but if Trump says something, Kerr has to bash our duly elected president all the time, right? Trump said Kerr looked like a scary little boy, something Kerr made reference to his initial remarks Thursday. This is what he said. If we had been thinking earlier I was going to ride in on a tricycle, with one of those beanies with the propeller because he called me a little boy. And he continues. I was thinking about my various visits to the White House. I've lived a privileged life and met, I think, the past 5 previous presidents prior to President Trump. The first one was in 1984, and Ronald Reagan was president. He's trying to compare Trump with other presidents, previous presidents. And then he goes, he invited my mom and me 6 months after my dad was killed in a terrorist attack. So his dad, Malcolm Kerr, he was killed in Lebanon. So I think Steve Kerr should know better. Lebanon was also an oppressive country, like what China is right now. Okay. What I'm saying is the hypocrisy of it, right? Even the players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. I'm mentioning the hypocrisy of what they are doing right now. They say they're so woke, right? They're woke. And they want to be freedom fighters, right? And they're so against Trump. Then why can't they comment on something, what China is doing against, to Hong Kong? Why can't they do that? Is it justifiable to say because we earn so much money from China? Then it weakens their logic altogether. He continues, Steve Kerr, he invited my mom and me 6 months after my dad was killed in a terrorist attack. President Reagan and Vice President George H.W. Bush invited us into the Oval Office, spent about half an hour with us, thanking us for my dad's service. He was in education. He was a professor, I believe. Thanking us for my dad's commitment to American values in the Middle East. Trying to promote peace in the Middle East. And all I could think of last night was a contrast. This is his snipe again, towards Donald Trump. And all I could think of last night was a contrast of what has happened in 35 years. There was no regard for whose side you were on politically, political party, anything like that. It was just you were an American. The office held such dignity and respect, both from the people who were visiting and especially the people who sat inside it. It's just sad it's coming crashing down. That we are now living this. I realize the horse was out of the barn a long time on this, but for me personally, this was my experience with wow, has the office sunken low? Right? He's criticizing Trump here, right? The office has sunken low. My hope is that we can find a mature unifier from either party to sit in that chair and try to restore some dignity to the Oval Office again. And I think it will happen. Hey, Steve Kerr, you should shut your mouth for saying like that, saying things like that to the United States president. You can't say anything about China. You got to know more about something. Really? Everybody pretty much, who has a junior high school degree would know what China is doing. That at least they don't. It's not a democracy over there, right? But you have to shoot your mouth against the president like this, even today, after being criticized all over about your, not commenting anything about China. I mean, everybody can hold their own, they can have their own political opinion, but when Steve Kerr does it, it really irritates me, Kerr said the backlash the league has received in China and the criticism he has received from Trump will not stop him from continuing to speak out on issues he believes in. Generally, my feeling is the things that I'm going to comment on are the things that I feel comfortable speaking about, things I feel well-versed about. Really? You have to study about China? How long are you going to study about China before you comment on that? I'm not even sure whether he studied national politics correctly. Does he know that Trump cared about the manufacturing jobs here? Does he know about the Paris Accord, the hypocrisy of it? Does he know that? Does he know that about the North Korea situation? Does he know that the Democrats and the Hillary Clinton campaign, they fabricated, they came up with a fake dossier and President Trump was spied upon? Does he know that? Does he know FISA? Does he know Michael Horowitz, Inspector General report coming out pretty soon? Does he know that? That the FBI and CIA, they were all in cahoots to go against Trump? Does he don't know the insurance policy? Does he know Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, what they have been exchanging each other? Does he know that? Does he know politics before he opens his mouth? You know, that's what I'm questioning. Probably he doesn't know that. Probably this is the if he's watching this, probably this is the first time he even knew about all the things that I just narrated to you guys. It's just ridiculous what Steve Kerr is doing. I don't think he knows all this. If you know all the things that's going on in politics right now, then it's hard for you to go against Trump, in my opinion, because of all the corruption that has been happening in the previous administration. Does he know Fast and Furious? Does he know the IRS scandal? I doubt it. Does he know Uranium One scandal? Even Greg Popovich. Do they know that? Do they know these scandals? I doubt it. I don't think I doubt they read, you know, a good politics book that, you know, that's honest, or you know, I don't know whether they read Clinton Cash or Extortion by Peter Schweizer. Do they know? Do they know all this before they criticize Trump? I'm wondering, you know. I just, you know, it's just ridiculous. The hypocrisy of the NBA players, some of them, I'm not all of them, some of them, and the head coach, it's just, you know, mind-boggling to me. So, okay, let's go on and check out some tweets and some headlines out there. So President Trump came out with a tweet. By the way, Trump had a huge rally yesterday in Minneapolis. There were like 20,000 people that gathered there. And I heard that 20,000 or even up to 30,000 were watching the show from outside. And he bashed Joe Biden. He said Joe Biden only became the United States vice president because he kissed Barack Obama's AS something. Okay, I believe that too. So let's check out the tweets. Okay, the president of the Ukraine just stated again in the strongest of language that President Trump applied no pressure and did absolutely nothing wrong. He used the strongest language possible. That should end this Democrat scam, but it won't, because the Dems and media are fixed. Let's move on to the next page. Joe Biden worked with whistleblower when he was vice president, officials reveal. This came out yesterday. Would the mainstream media cover this? I heard that the Joe Biden campaign, they asked the mainstream media not to ask these questions anymore. Can you believe that? What if Trump said the same thing, you know, regarding his issues? So this whistleblower, he wasn't even a first-hand whistleblower. He was a second-hand whistleblower. But he worked with Joe Biden. Let's see whether the media today, like CNN, New York Times, and Washington Post, would cover this news. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Tony Webster tweet, massive line for the Trump rally yesterday, and there seems to be a constant flow of people joining. So let's go on to the next page. Trump war room. I've been in an auto parts factory for 50 years. Times in the United States have never been better. I think we're entering the prime manufacturing golden era for American manufacturing right now. So manufacturing business is booming under President Trump right now. Probably Rust Belt is going to go for Trump again in 2020? I would think so. Manufacturers know @real Donald Trump is fighting for them. Let's move on to the next page. Paul Joseph Watson, retweet if you think the NBA is a disgrace to America. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Ida Spy tweeted this, the only delay is a William Barr, John Durham investigation, and only because it has been expanded due to the reach of criminality discovered. I want to ask Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr this. Do they know who John Durham is? Huh? Do they know that? Do they know Carter Page? Huh? George Papadopoulos? What they had to go through? How they were spied upon? You know, and they used the hot rule so that probably even Trump was, you know, I do know that Trump was wiretapped too. Do they know? Do they know that? That Trump had to change? Trump had to move out, not move out, he had to change his interview place from Trump Tower to Bedminster, New Jersey, because former NSA director Mike Rogers told Trump that he's being wiretapped, that people can listen in, people are eavesdropping. You know, I think before they open their mouth, I really wish that they study more about politics. You know, what's really going on, not what the mainstream media, not what CNN, New York Times, and Washington Post or MSNBC is telling them to believe. It continues, I would venture to say without expressly leaking details that it will incriminate many a power player and expose huge murderous cover-up. Let's go on to the next page. Donald Trump Jr. Is responding what Matt Wolking tweeted. Joe Biden worked with CIA whistleblower when he was VP. And Donald Trump Jr. Tweeted, OMG, oh my God. No one is at all surprised, but oh my God. OMG. Let's go on to the next page. Dan Bongino, who used to work in the Secret Service, right? I think he also worked under Obama. But now he's a conservative commentator who has his own podcast. This is what he tweeted. Just curious, where are all the woke professional athletes kneeling during games in China in favor of social justice? Asking for a friend. Dan Bongino is asking, you know, if the NBA players, since they were so for Colin Kaepernick when he was kneeling, when the national anthem would come out from the speakers in the stadium, you know, they applaud that. But how come they're not standing up for Hong Kong people, right? Who's suffering, who's being oppressed by the Chinese government? What it's saying is, what the NBA players and some people in the NBA is saying is, if it comes to money, then we're going to shut up. You know, we're going to shut up. I believe from here on out, NBA players would have more difficulty, and more scrutiny whenever they shoot their mouth against the current administration. I mean, they brought this to themselves. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Okay, Lisa Mae Crowley won't ever eat there again. Just learned Buffalo Wings canceled a Michigan viewing party for @real Donald Trump's rally. Wow. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Greg Gutfeld on the media using repetition as a tool. Yeah, this has been going on since day one. They put President Trump and Russia in the same sentence over and over and over again so that they can brainwash people to believe this fiction, that Trump somehow colluded with Russia, when in actuality it was the Democrats who were colluding with Russians. Okay, the hypocrisy is just unbelievable. And even with just everything, whatever scandal Trump was involved in, the created scandal, even with Ukraine, even though his phone call, there was nothing wrong with it, they want people to believe that there was something wrong with it. You know, the media is spreading these kind of lies. It's just ridiculous. It's just insane what's been going on and on and on. But I think more and more Americans are realizing that the mainstream media out there is pretty much fake news. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Greg Jarrett from Fox News, legal analyst. Giuliani, VP Biden received $900,000 from Burisma for lobbying. Wow. How come the mainstream media is not covering this, right? It's like they're the extension of the Democratic Party, right? Let's move on to the next page. Praying Medic tweeted this, POTUS on Trey Gowdy joining his legal team. I think there's a problem with he can't start for another couple of months because of lobbying rules and regulations. Trey Gowdy can't start till sometime after January. Let's move on to the next page. Lisa Mae Crowley, he knows he didn't have a prayer. Mitt Romney rules out 2020 run. Says Trump re-election likely. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Okay, I think this is the last page. Well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right, it's about right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.